quick tutorial on how to do lower thirds using DaVinci Resolve in context to an assignment that my students have, illustrating different types of composition in cinema. All right, well, I need y'all to pretend, for those who are doing the assignment, that you've got all 12 of your different examples loaded into DaVinci. I have one clip, and I'm interested in taking a gander at one of my favorite superheroes of all time, and that is Rey from Star Wars. So I'm just gonna look around in here for a quick example. So let's pretend this is the clip that I want to use for center framing. Well, that's interesting because there's center framing there, center framing there. There's lots of action in this, so I'm gonna put an in point and an out point. Now you would be using your entire clip and not doing what I'm doing. You don't need to use in and out points unless you wanted to find a specific part of your clip that you want to bring down onto the timeline. And I don't need the audio for this, so I'm just going to be really mindful to, as we always do, I'll just grab the video from that icon there and drag that down to video 1. Okay, so I'm going to pretend that that is what I need to do for center framing. Now, if you want to get a really great mark on this assignment, I would strongly encourage you to do something up in the front end to make a really nice title. I'm going to come back to the titling at the end so that I can move through the lower thirds as fast as possible. Well, the last thing I want to see when you're working on this is, titles that are just hanging out on a black background. I want you to spend a little bit more time, making something interesting in the background, get a really nice back plate. I'll show you a fun little tip on how to blur your background over time to give yourself a little bit more contrast, get your footage to pop off the background. So up here, we've got this button, the effects. I'm going to turn that on, and then we get some options down below here, including titles. Now you can search, which is really nice. You can just click on the little spyglass and type in third if you want to find them. But first I'm just going to look for a title that I like that's going to pop up on top of some imagery, just to give this thing some title. And I don't want to go into too much detail about this right now, but I just want to show you what I don't want to see. So I'll give this one a go for the moment, and I'm going to drag that out onto my timeline. I'm going to put this up onto V2, so I've got myself organized. If you wanted to, you could even rename these layers. So this is going to be my footage. These are going to be my titles. Keep yourself nice and organized. And this is what I do not want to see, okay, is just the titles popping up on a black background. I want you to spend a little bit more time, put some footage behind that, and then make it really read. Make sure that the text pops off the background and that it's on screen long enough for the viewer to actually see what's going on. And give it a meaningful name. Please do not necessarily follow my lead on this, but come up with a creative name for yours. So I'm just going to call this examples of great composition, and take some time to find that font. And I think I got Poppins installed. I'm a little bit hooked on Poppins right now. Yeah. And make sure it reads, and that means size. So that's going to work for me. And give the computer a chance to render. You see right now I've got a red line, so the computer's thinking it's turning blue. So it's doing its best to cache the animation. I'm on an i9 MacBook Pro, so things are happening a lot quicker than some of your laptops out there. So I'm going to press play, and I'm going to read this out loud just to triple check that it's on screen long enough for the viewer to read my message. Examples of great composition. seems about right. If it's not, maybe I want to give it a little bit more time. Stretch that out. I'm going to grab my first example here, stretch that out, rewind, and press play again. Examples. Oh, see how jaggy it is? It's super jaggy because it's trying to solve for the animation now that I've changed its duration. So sometimes you just got to wait for that blue line to let the clip render. Now it should run smooth. Examples of great composition. Perfect. That I like. I like it a lot. Now, I'm going to come back to that at the end of this video just to dress that title up a little bit, make it look a lot more interesting. And I'm going to start thinking about my thirds. You got to be careful with the term third, because if you're thinking about thirds like the rule of thirds, well, it's not exactly the same. It's not dividing the screen perfectly into thirds. Lower thirds tend to drop down a little bit lower than the actual 2/3 vertical distance from the top. So I'm just going to type into the search engine third, and that's going to give me all of the isolated lower third options that I have. Now you got to be careful when you're choosing these, because sometimes they don't have what's called a text bed. They don't have background colors. So if you're not picking the right one, you might find that you're having a difficult time with contrast. So I'm just going to pick one that I know has a lot of pop, and that's a good one there. I'm going to drag this out and put that over here. And what I like to do, it's not a hard and fast rule, is that I'll give the footage an opportunity to play for a little bit, and then we get to see the title. So what should this be called? Well, I'm going to look back at the assignment, and I know that this is rule. Well, this actually isn't rule of thirds. I'm just going to jump down the line. I'm going to test you on your ability to discover the appropriate place to put these in order. But let's pretend that I might be now on the center framing. So this is an example of center framing. So I'm typing that into the inspector up here. You might have to click on that to open up the inspector, make sure that you've got the title highlighted. And now we should see, as it starts to render the animation, as it draws all the frames, it should see, we've watched the footage for a couple of seconds, and then we should see the lower third pop up. Center framing. Now you determine how long you want to hang that on screen based on whether or not the viewer can read it. And there's only one way to know that: read it out loud and read it slowly. Now back here, I'm using pop-ins. So I'm going to use repetition as a general rule just to keep it all in the family. I'm going to dress this up. I'm going to call this one pop-ins. Gotta find that. There it is. I think I can type the P button, and that will take me down to the P's. Switch over to pop-ins. There it is. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that it really does read a lot clearer. And it doesn't matter if it stomps a little bit up on the footage, that's fine. And this is a letterbox situation, so the footage that I grabbed isn't actually full screen, which is fine if I'm using this example. It's going to be consistent all the way through. All right, so give it a chance to play for a little bit. Lower third pops up, and then it flies away. Does it hang long enough for the viewer to read it? Let's see. Center framing. It might be too long, so I'm just going to grab the tail, drag it back, and that will alter the duration of that clip. Center framing. Maybe got to wait for it to render. The red lines are going to turn blue any second now. Wait. It'll happen. There we go. Center framing. Cool. Now you'll notice that the example that I just picked actually doesn't have a color. Instead, they're using the alpha channel or transparency to punch out the lettering. So I might not, see it says color for the font. Well, they've got alpha turned up really, really high. So I could arguably go in there and mess around with that, but I want to dress this up and make it look really unique. So I'm going to change the color of my background. Box color is there. See what they give me for control. I'm going to change the color of my box to something nice. I'm having trouble with the color picker, but sometimes it's nice to just grab a color right off the background. I'm not sure why the color picker doesn't always do its job in DaVinci. Something I'm doing wrong. Anywho, instead I'm just going to try to mimic this sort of aqua tealy darkish blue here. That's just a matter of mucking around trying to find that nice sweet spot. No right or wrong answers, but now I'm starting to discover that I cannot read, whoops, I cannot read the text when I start to go into that dark tone. Now I like it, gotta click OK, that's what I forgot to do earlier. But now I don't have the contrast that I need to read it. So I wonder if I go back up into the color, if I could change the alpha. Now if I want, I'm gonna try to pop this up and I'm gonna go closer to white. And how do I change the alpha channel? Is it gonna let me do that? Is that an option? Is that an option? Colors. I'm not seeing alpha as an option here. And that could just be me doing this incorrectly. I would half expect to see transparency as an option here, but the color picker that is popping up here is going to be different than the ones you see on PC, because it's actually the Mac system color picker. Am I just missing it in here? Emphasis, motion blur, box color. I would expect to see in here something for transparency, but I guess the effect is intended to be transparent like that. So maybe it's just not a thing. So under settings, take a peek around. Composite, normal mode, stable, nope. So sometimes the best thing you can do, just the fastest answer, is blow it away. Try another one. Just try another one. Look around for the next one, move on. It's done in the industry all the time. And I would say, you know, example, whatever it is on my list, probably isn't example 8, so be careful. I'm going to change this to Poppins, and I'm going to increase its size. Whoops. Poppins. Increase its size. This is a nice option here, this lower third, because it has a lot of cool settings. Like, I think it has corner radius. It does. So corner radius, we can actually change. You can see it's influencing the corners of that, which is really pretty. Example 8, and maybe down below I'm going to write in here center framing, spelt Canadian. Up my size. That's kind of frustrating that it's going to have to live behind the other text bed, so I'm just going to play around with the size of that so I can read center framing. That looks cool. And for the one below, I'm just going to spend some time on the corner radius. Cool, like it. And then I'm going to change the color. That's my font color. Be careful. Where's the actual background color? There it is. So I'm just going to pop that up. Currently set to gray, boring. I'm going to change it to be green, similar to the background, that kind of aqua color. and then that blue just doesn't work. So this is how we take time up in the front end to really consider how things are looking, to make to do the graphic design that's required to make your stuff look really, really strong. What's great, now that I've set my fonts, Poppins there. Do I have Poppins below? Nope. I'm gonna make this one Poppins. You don't have to have two of the exact same font. You could have two pairing fonts that are really nice together. That's all up to you. And it's great because I spend a bunch of time. I've set up my fonts, my colors, all things look great. And now I can easily copy and paste that into the future. A quick tip. I asked for each of these clips to be 15 seconds. So all you need to do is zip on over to your change clip duration tool, click the 15 seconds button. Thank you, DaVinci. Hit change, and that will be exactly the right length. All right, and now I'll go on to the next one really fast. Do this at the speed of industry. Try to find a different example here. So he's up in the top third, using the force like the bad man that he is. So we got some stuff in the third. Let's grab it all. Love this scene, love it. In, out. I'm gonna pull that down. Now that I've got a rhythm, I'm gonna quickly just change the clip duration to be 15 seconds. Change, and then I'm gonna grab this guy. Now you would hold down Alt on a PC, but on a Mac, you would hold down Control. And I'll, for copying, for quick copy. You can copy and paste just using the edit pull down for edit, copy, cut, etc. But the fastest way to do a copy is to hold down Alt or Command on a Mac and then just click and drag the clip. Sorry, it's Option. Click and drag the clip, and now change this text to be what you need. You want to do a really fantastic job of making this next section unique. You want to make the colors match. You don't have to touch the fonts. So now this might be, rule of thirds. And then whatever my requirements are. And I'm going to warn you right now, pay attention. This is not exactly the titling that I've been requesting directly from my assignment. So you're going to have to go back to week 10 on my notes and look at the list of the production requirements for this assignment to find exactly what I want. So I'm making a mistake here. Just test to see if you're going to copy me or not. Sneaky. All right, file save. Let's always get into that habit. Just Command S, save that project. Rule of thirds, looking good. It's not supposed to say top left, but I'm just gonna write that in there anyway. And then I'm gonna grab my soundtrack, drag that on down, and some things that I look for, fade in. So rewind and listen to it. Cool. And then at the end, I'm just going to use the B blade tool, cut, A, select tool, select, delete. And this is just something I came up with years ago, but I like to trail out my audio and then fade that out when I'm ending a video over time. So when it fades to black, it just, during the black frames, you actually can hear. It's just a personal thing. It's not a requirement, but it's just a nice touch. So for example, I'll just go full screen here. Rewind to the end. Oops, what am I playing? I'm not playing the right timeline. So it goes to black, and then there we go. Fades out nicely over time. All right, so I think I've got everything in place that I want. Now I want to put a little bit of effort. This is the moment here where I'd like to, you don't have to do this, okay? But I do want to see some footage on behind your titles. So you want to get that 90% on this assignment. Please take a little bit more time to dress up your text, size, get a nice animation going, and put some footage behind your text. Now you're going to notice right away, this is going to probably have a difficult time being read, because, let me go back, turn off the inspector here. I have to choose a moment where I can choose a really nice moment that I'm going to use for the background here. Maybe I'll use the explosion. Spoiler. This is when Chewbacca dies. Just kidding. Am I kidding? Spoiler. So I'm going to grab this little moment here where there's this explosion. Neat thing. These buttons down here have to do with inserting. And there's this button here that says replace clip. Now, if you notice here, when I drag this down with the in and out points where I have it, this will overwrite. See, it's too long and will actually overwrite some of the footage from the next piece of footage, the next clip. But watch this with my in and out points. Friend just taught me this. If I highlight this area here, this blank space, and I press this button here, replace clip, it shouldn't cut the next clip. So in other words, DaVinci determines that this is actually considered to be like a clip. I guess it is, it's black frames, but it sees it as a clip. And when I press replace clip, we'll see if this works. Nah, it overwrote my audio. And I don't want it to do that. So I can turn off A1. So it says, do not affect A1. Lock the track. I'm happy with it right now. So turn it off and lock it. Now when I highlight this and I replace clip, beauty. It fills that area just nicely. Super power tip. Nice. So, a few things. I would like to move everything to the right a little bit so that it starts black. So there's another keystroke. I do believe it's Command Y, Command U, Command Y, Command U. Anyway, there is a keystroke. There it is, Y. If I press Y, it will select everything ahead of what you currently have selected. So if I need to turn A1 back on, unlock it. So if I grab this and press Y, and U, and U, and U, it'll select everything in front. I'm going to just nudge this forward a little bit so I have some black. I do want to fade in. It's always a nice touch. I'm even going to fade this down, I think. I'm going to fade this out. So it fades in. Examples of great composition. Then it fades away. Just to give the viewer the sense that they're changing from the titles to the next clip. That is also a really good use of your transitions. And people go overboard with transitions, but transitions do indicate to the viewer that something's dramatically changing or there has been a passage of time. So I'm actually going to clear out my search engine here and go to video transitions and do a crossfade. Are you gonna let me do that? Oh, that's audio. Video transitions, gotta be clear. Video transitions, I just want to use cross dissolve. Keep it simple. Cool, let it render. Yeah, that looks great. And for the period of time when the text is popping up, I'm starting to see a problem where the brightest areas here are not making it easy for the viewer to read what's going on. Now, traditionally, what you would do is, just hop on over to the inspector. I would have assumed that in the inspector there might be an option here for drop shadows, but often in DaVinci they're not there. Maybe they are and I just really don't know how to access them, or they just weren't created in the Fusion composition. Notice it does say Fusion. So all of this stuff was created using the Fusion interface down here. So they're really just little Fusion compositions that were saved. So maybe the creator just didn't think to use drop shadows. Now drop shadows are, there's a joke I used to say that 1997 calls and they want their drop shadows back. But they're useful. They're helpful to make things pop off the background, give them a little bit of, dimension. So what I'll do is, using that keystroke again of option, I'm just going to duplicate this. Now I have white on white and they're in the exact same position. So this thing here, this second layer below, I'm going to trick DaVinci into giving me a drop shadow. So I'm going to change the color to dark, dark, dark. So now there's a blackish object behind the white one, and got to make sure you have it selected, the one below. And then to settings, I'm just going to position it off to the right a little bit. So we're starting to see the other layer through, and then I'm going to drop the Y. That's cool. It's giving me a little bit of pop, but in your toolbox under Open Effects, they do have a Gaussian blur. So I'm going to throw that Gaussian blur on top of my text layer, and voila! Just what you would expect from normal drop shadow object for a drop shadow property in things like Photoshop, etc. But you now have to, if you want to change how fuzzy it is, you'd have to highlight the actual object, and now we've got this magic wand open here, and there's the Gaussian blur. So I'm just going to decrease that a little bit just to soften it out. This is all art, no right or wrong answers. What am I seeing up there under the E? Got something funky is going on. What's going on up there? I don't know if you can see that. Something's going on up there. And something's going on down here on the O. I'm confused. Maybe it just needs to render. It seems to just want to crawl. I don't know if you can see that. That's not what I would expect. Why is it crawling around like that? Some creepy crawlies. Huh. That's odd. Very strange. Just turn off use alpha. Let's turn that off for a second here. Well, it's still crawling. Huh. global blend. Not what I would expect. Ugh, that doesn't look pretty at all. So I'm going to just trash that effect. Yeah. Just having that little edge, it looks really great. I think it's got something to do with the repositioning of the font causing some issues. Oh, it already has a blur on it. It's got a secondary blur. That's what's causing the problem. So I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm happy with that. As long as there's a little bit of a drop shadow, it's going to pop a little bit there. All right, so let's double check. Rewind. Does it fade in? Maybe I'll bring the soundtrack earlier so it fades in earlier. That'd be cool. Examples of great composition. Center framing. Give the video an opportunity to play. You don't have to have the title up the whole time. Yeah. And then what I always like to do, you've got 12 of these clips that you need to export, masterfully create. So up on my desktop, I'm going to just export this real quickly, call it test, and I'm going to use the YouTube. Yeah, I don't want to upload directly to YouTube. That always seems to break these days with DaVinci. So just make sure you do the export and then triple check, you look at it, listen to it, make sure that you're super satisfied with everything before bothering to upload it to YouTube. And if you're not, go in and fix it. What you don't create perfectly the first time, the second time you go through it, you're going to be faster, and practice, practice, practice. That is how we get great at this stuff. All right, so let me see how this looks. My desktop. Bring this down. There we go. Let's see. There you have it. I am satisfied with that, my friends. That is what I'm looking for. Take some time to change the color of your different backgrounds on your lower thirds. And really think about type. Typesetting is everything when it comes to graphic design. It's one of the most powerful things that you have at your disposal. Picking a good font, making sure it looks really nice, read really clearly, that's going to make your videos look really awesome. All right, I'm going to stop here and say, happy editing, my friends. Enjoy.